Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to share with you my player setup for the ongoing Dungeons & Dragons campaign that I play. It's taken me a long time to figure out what works for me, and I wanted to share how I do it. I feel like I've got to a good sweet spot with it. It works really well for me. It helps with all the kind of snags that I feel D&D brings me. Just FYI, when I say D&D, I mean Dungeons & Dragons, the popular role-playing tabletop adventure game. It's just an abbreviation, so yeah, when I'm talking about D&D, I'm talking about Dungeons & Dragons, and specifically our campaign works off the 5th edition rules. It is a homebrew, which basically means it hasn't been officially written by Wizards of the Coast, who created D&D. This one was actually written by Ben, the other half of the guild, and we've been playing this campaign for almost a year now, and it's great fun. Prior to this, D&D intimidated me. I couldn't get into it. I found it very confusing, very stressful, and it wasn't necessarily something I wanted to play very much. I'm not good with rule-heavy games or rule-heavy anything, and there's always a lot to remember, and it took me a long time to find a system that meant I could remember everything, or the stuff I didn't remember I had written down, and I had everything organised and in a place that made the game and the role-playing and the combat a lot easier. So I would like to show you my player setup for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I just thought before I show you my player setup, I think it's worth me introducing the character I play in the current campaign. Her name is Tresserig Vulgaris. She is a cynical, sassy, 222-year-old sorcerer. She fell in a peat bog when she was 22, and she was actually preserved in it for 200 years before being rescued. In that time she was imbued with wild magic, and so she has got wild magic features to her. I think features is the right word. But effectively she's a sorcerer, she's human, she's 222 years old, she's currently level 5, but her main kind of quirk is her wild magic. This can trigger randomly. Something cool that Ben has done in our campaign is if she is emotionally heightened for whatever reason, whether or not she's angry or stressed or happy or whatever, it triggers her wild magic, which is great because it means it happens more regularly than like the general official rules allow, and it has proven quite interesting and quite funny. So currently she is unable to get drunk and she has much shorter hair, but this is the first drawing I did of her. She also accidentally polymorphed into a sheep at a very stressful time. She was getting particularly angry at somebody. It also happened when she was trying to tell somebody off for doing a poor job, and she polymorphed into a plant. She's great fun to play. She's very much inspired by Edlyn Clawthorne from the Owl House, and kind of that mixed with Ron Swanson, I would say, from Parks and Recreation. Yes, she's very cynical. She prefers to be independent and alone. Being part of a party has been quite an adjustment for her, and she likes to keep people at a distance through what she wears, how she decorates her house or her hut, and she tries to portray herself as alternative and spiritual and mysterious, but in a very repellent way. She doesn't like people talking to her, but she does like to feel important, and her ego is very fragile. So if she does draw attention of anybody, she just expects them to be highly respectful, amazed, in awe of her. Yeah, she's a fun character to play, but she has got her insecurities and quirks. So that is Tress. And some of the stuff that I'll show you in my player setup is very much for sorcerers, but the rest of it could apply to other characters as well. So everything I show you today is basically what I take to all of our campaign sessions. We play in person, so it's all paper and physical, and it works better for me. I tend to think better if I've got a pen or pencil in my hand. But with this setup, I had kind of 3 major sticking points with Dungeons and Dragons that I wanted to solve. Prior to this campaign, I found D&D to be very intimidating, very stressful, hard to play, and there were kind of multiple reasons for this. One was the extensive rules and the amount that you have to remember. I'm terrible at remembering things, and I'm awful at remembering rules especially. So I tended to forget things very quickly, and then I felt like a burden on my party or on the rest of the players because I was unable to remember basic things about my character, even, you know, months into something. So I wanted to eliminate the stress that not knowing something caused me. I also I find it hard to see the difference in I find it hard to see the differences in dice? Yeah, die is one, dice is plural. I find it hard to see the differences in the different sided dice. They all kind of look the same to me, and that stressed me out as well because I was unable to quickly pick up what I needed. So I wanted to eliminate that. And the third thing I wanted to do was I wanted to better support the party as a whole. To previous games, I was so fixated on making sure that my character wasn't a burden or wasn't getting in the way, because I think I was worried that I was getting in the way as a player, that I wasn't collaborating enough, I wasn't role-playing enough, I was just kind of sat there frozen, worried, stressed about the next combat, so I was unable to kind of engage. So this setup is to eliminate the stress of not remembering everything, eliminate the stress of not knowing which dice is which, and collaborate and roleplay more once I fixed these 2 things. And I got there. I feel like this setup really works for me. It doesn't stress me out anymore. I find this incredibly fun now. I'm able to roleplay, to collaborate. I've taken on roles in the party like treasurer. That means that I can, really kind of embed myself in something that used to provide stress and anxiety. So yeah, this is the setup that works for me, and I massively encourage you that if you are finding D&D hard or intimidating, that it might just be your setup, it might just be how things are run, and hopefully this gives you some ideas to help with your campaign. So I wanted to start with probably the most important piece of my kit, which is this folder. This is actually a 3-fold A4 menu holder that I got from Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. But this holds my spell tracker, my character sheet, and my inventory. These are all sheets that I've designed. This character sheet is available on our shop, but this spell tracker and inventory are free to download from our online shop. I'll put all the links in the description. I tried to streamline the character sheet so it just included the more permanent stats, because when I started trying to track my hit points on my old character sheet, it got really damaged really quickly because I kept rubbing it out and adding things. So this way all the information that kind of stays the same for at least a level is all in one place, and I'll show you where my hit points now sit later on. But what's amazing about this is once you've put your kind of sheets in, you can use it as a whiteboard because this is plastic. So anything that is more temporary or that changes quite often within a game, I will just add in whiteboard pen on this plastic. As a sorcerer, I have limited spell slots that I can use in combat or in a day before a long rest. So I can track them on this page here. So usually at our campaign or at a session, I'll have it on the table like this. Games masters or dungeon masters, sometimes called DMs or GMs, have their screens so we can't see their information. But I thought it might be nice for players to have a screen too. So this is basically my player screen, but I tend to have it down during combat so I can see the map, but it folds away really nicely as well. I'm thinking that this is the side the other players see, so I kind of either want to decorate this or make it useful for us as a party. So I'm thinking about maybe having like an additional inventory sheet so people can see what we have, because I look after our haversack. And maybe have kind of like a to-do list here. So the second most important part of my player kit is this A5 presentation folder, also from Amazon. I'll pop a link down below. This includes all of my spells, armor, weapons and items. These little sheets I've designed and are available as A5 memo pads. So there's one that is for spells. There's 50 pages of spells. There's one for weapons, items and armor. So there are 20 pages for weapons, 10 pages for armor and 20 pages for items. I've color coded and symbol coded everything to hopefully make it a bit easier when you're kind of flicking through however you have it. My spells are ordered by level and the cantrips are right at the beginning, so it goes cantrips level 1, 2 and 3. So hopefully it kind of makes it a bit easier for me to find things, because I tend to remember the level of the spell usually. I'm not sure why, but I won't remember the names of them, but I kind of have a good idea of what they do and how high of a level they are. I'm thinking of maybe creating some like sticker dividers for the top. So it's easy to find things. If I do, I'll make sure they're available in our shop as well. I tried to organise these memos so there's kind of the key information and then more in-depth information. So for my Crown of Madness, for example, I have all the key information on the side here, including the fact that targets get a Crown of Iron. And this is important for our campaign because we come up against a lot of Fae and a lot of unseelie and seelie Fae, and they both react negatively to iron. So I've just added that in the notes column to kind of separate it from all this description, because as much as this is interesting, it's not necessarily vital for most of the time, but this part is. So I used to look things up on my phone if I couldn't remember a spell, but this way the act of writing it down helps me remember, but also I'm able to find things a lot easier than I can when I'm Google searching. I used to have my hit points on the front of here like a whiteboard, but I've now designed this new A5 memo pad, which is session notes and combat notes, because I found there was a lot of information I needed to temporarily remember in a session, and sometimes it was like a to-do list or key points or notes that I needed specifically for a session. So there's the kind of session notes down this side, and you can see kind of our most recent to-do list. I only ticked 2 things off, so it was obviously a very successful session. I think I derailed it actually, I think that was my fault. And over here we have combat notes. So this is where I've moved the temporary, current and max hit points to. And then I've also got conditions of combat. So this can include like terrain or things that affect your character, or even if things that affect other characters if you need to remember that. There's also a space for death saves just here. You can kind of just throw it away at the end of a session if you need to, or you can kind of cut it. So if you wanted to just keep the session notes, you could kind of cut it in half. Or what I do is transfer it to something if it's important information that I need for the rest of the campaign. Which brings me on to our most recent memo pad that I actually haven't used yet in a campaign, which is our locations and characters memo pad. And this is effectively a way to keep track of all the important areas, environments, towns, cities that you come up against and the characters within them. I'm terrible with names, I'm terrible with locations, and it's probably another sticking point that I forgot to mention at the beginning is I never remember anything, especially geographical information. So I'm hoping this will help me. And I've got another of these A5 presentation folders to keep it all in. What I'll do is I'll have the location as like the first part of the page and then have the characters in alphabetical order for that location, and then kind of do it like that. So it will be categorized by location and then alphabetically, probably by surname if we know their surname. A big part of our campaign is collaboration and working with the towns and cities that are around us. It's very much a kind of like a town builder as much as it is a D&D campaign, and we've got a lot of kind of like political allies and like trading routes, and it's becoming quite complicated in the best possible way. But I think having another A5 folder of characters and locations will be very helpful. It's also be good for when we need a certain skill or require a certain service that we know who to contact. So I think that covers most of like how I organize my notes and how I write things down. I find that it's good to kind of write things down temporarily, and then move things to a more permanent location if needed. These have been particularly good as well for Ben, so if Ben has an item or a weapon or something or armour he wants to give us, he'll fill one of these out and provide it to us as well. One thing that has been an absolute game changer, which is how I organise my dice. So this is something again I got from Amazon. It's just a little storage container with compartments, but it means that I can organise my dice by type, and now I don't get confused. You'll see that I've got labels for each type of dice as well. And this has been so helpful. I used to pick up the wrong dice all the time. And I also have two compartments here. This is how we keep our potions at the moment. We've got these cuties. I'm not sure where these are from. Another member of our party bought them, but I'll double check and hopefully put it in the description. I also created these stickers that I use on my inventory list. I'm not particularly good at remembering where to look for information, so the more places I put it, the better. So as well as having the tokens, I put these on our inventory list. I've just updated it, so I just need to add them again. And I also have this piece of string, which is really helpful. So something else that I find difficult is how spells work. So sometimes they're in a line, sometimes they're in a cube, sometimes they're in a cone, and yeah, I find that hard to picture. So Ben came up with this really cool idea for my new spell. It's ridiculous, it's a ridiculous spell. Okay, it's a lightning bolt. So my level 3 lightning bolt has a range of 100 feet from myself, or from Tress. And so this piece of string is 100 foot for a D&D campaign. So this shows how far my lightning bolt goes, and I can also figure out the angle in which I want to cast it. So this is a very useful piece of string, and I recommend if you do spell casting to have things like this to help you. I find this more helpful than a ruler because it's less intrusive. It can kind of go in between our miniatures without causing too much damage or intrusion. I also have these for when I do a cloud of daggers. So this is my like little 5-foot cube of daggers, and it just helps a lot to have a visual representation, but also to be able to place exactly where I'm hoping to kind of cast this spell. I can't remember where these are from, but again, I'll put it in the description down below. And on the back, you also have some fire, so that might be helpful. So yeah, that's my little dice items and spellcasting support box. And that comboed with everything else makes my life a lot easier and makes gaming a lot more fun. I hope this has been helpful. I'd really like to know how you set up your space as a D&D player or as a D&D games master. I'd love to see some photos or read some descriptions, so if you're happy to share them, please send them over or put them in the comments, because it's always interesting to see how people set these things up, but also to help each other out, because there's nothing better than playing D&D once you've got to grips with it and you found a way of doing it that works for you. And hopefully this helps you guys a little bit. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you've got any questions, just message. If you want to share anything, just message or comment below. And I hope you have a really wonderful week. Bye.